Welcome to Bible in a Year with Scott Purcell. I'm so glad you're joining me. This is a daily reading of portions of the Bible, following a plan that will include the entire Bible in a year. And now, let's open the book and begin our readings. This is the reading for day 90. If your reading is aligned with the calendar year and a non-leap year, this is for March 31st, or in a leap year for March 30th. The Old Testament reading is from Numbers 29, verse 12, through Numbers 31, verse 24. Numbers 29, 12. Then on the 15th day of the 7th month you will have a holy convocation. You will not do any regular work, and you will hold a religious feast for Yahweh for 7 days. You will present a burnt offering, an offering made by fire as a fragrance of appeasement for Yahweh. 13 bulls, 2 rams, 14 male lambs in their first year, they will be without defect. And their grain offering will be of finely milled flour mixed with oil, 3/10 for the bull, 2/10 for the 1 ram, 1/10 for each of the 7 male lambs, and 1 male goat for a sin offering, in addition to the continual burnt offering, its grain offering, and its libation. On the 2nd day, 12 bulls, 2 rams, 14 male lambs in their first year. They will be without defect. And their grain offering and their libations for the bulls, for the rams, and for the male lambs, by their number according to the stipulation. And 1 male goat for a sin offering, in addition to the continual burnt offering, and its grain offering, and their libations. On the 3rd day, 11 bulls, 2 rams, 14 male lambs without defect in their first year, and their grain offering, and their libations for the bulls, for the rams, and for the male lambs, by their number according to the stipulation. And 1 male goat for a sin offering, in addition to the continual burnt offering, its grain offering, and its libation. On the 4th day, 10 bulls, 2 rams, 14 male lambs without defect in their first year, and their grain offering, and their libations for the bulls, for the rams, and for the male lambs, by their number according to the stipulation. And 1 male goat for a sin offering, in addition to the continual burnt offering, its grain offering, and its libation. On the 5th day, 9 bulls, 2 rams, 14 male lambs without defect in their first year, and their grain offering, and their libations for the bulls, for the rams, and for the male lambs by their number according to the stipulation, and 1 male goat for a sin offering, in addition to the continual burnt offering, its grain offering, and its libation. On the 6th day, 8 bulls, 2 rams, 14 male lambs without defect in their first year, and their grain offering, and their libations for the bulls, for the rams, and for the male lambs by their number, according to the stipulation, and their grain offering, and their libations for the bulls, for the rams, and for the male lambs, by their number according to the stipulation, and 1 male goat for a sin offering, in addition to the continual burnt offering, its grain offering, and its libation. On the 7th day, 7 bulls, 2 rams, 14 male lambs without defect in their first year, and their grain offering, and their libations for the bulls, for the rams, and for the male lambs, by their number according to the stipulation, and 1 male goat for a sin offering, in addition to the continual burnt offering, its grain offering, and its libation. On the 8th day you will have an assembly. You will not do any regular work. You will present a burnt offering, an offering made by fire as a fragrance of appeasement for Yahweh. 1 bull, 1 ram, 7 male lambs without defect in their first year, and their grain offering, and their libations for the bulls, for the rams, and for the male lambs by their number according to the stipulation, and 1 male goat for a sin offering, in addition to the continual burnt offering, its grain offering, and its libation. You will present these to Yahweh at your appointed time, in addition to your vows and your free will offerings, for your burnt offerings, and for your grain offerings, and for your libations, and for your fellowship offerings." So Moses said to the Israelites in accordance with all that Yahweh commanded Moses. Numbers 30. Then Moses spoke to the leaders of the tribes concerning the Israelites, saying, "This is the word that Yahweh commanded. If a man makes a vow for Yahweh, or swears an oath with a binding pledge on himself, he must not render his word invalid. He must do all that went out from his mouth. If a woman makes a vow to Yahweh, and she binds a pledge on herself in her father's house in your childhood, but if her father hears her vow or her pledge that she bound on herself, and says nothing to her, then all her vows will stand, and every pledge that she binds on her life will stand. If her father forbids her on the day he hears of it, all her vows or her pledges that she bound on herself will not stand, and Yahweh will forgive her because her father has forgiven her. If she has a husband while bound by her vows or a rash promise of her lips, and her husband hears of it and is silent on the day he hears it, her vows will stand, and her pledge that she bound upon herself will stand. But if on the day her husband hears of it he forbids her, then he will nullify her vow that she is under, and the rash promise of her lips that she bound on herself, and Yahweh will forgive her. But the vow of a widow or a woman who is divorced, all that she binds on herself will stand on her. But if she made a vow in her husband's house, or bound herself on a pledge with a sworn oath, and her husband heard it but was silent to her, and he did not forbid her, all her vows will stand, and every pledge that she bound on herself will stand. But if her husband nullified them on the day he hears them, all her vows going out of her lips concerning her vows, or the pledge on herself will not stand. Her husband has nullified them, and Yahweh will forgive her. Any vow and any sworn oath of a pledge to inflict on herself, her husband can confirm it, or her husband can nullify it. But if her husband is completely silent from day to day, then he confirms all her vows or all her pledges that are on her. He confirms them because he was silent to her on the day he heard them. But if he indeed nullifies them after he hears them, then he will bear her guilt. These are the decrees that Yahweh commanded Moses as between a husband and his wife, and between a father and his daughter while her childhood is in her father's house. Numbers 31. Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, "Seek vengeance for the Israelites on the Midianites. Afterward you will be gathered to your people." Moses spoke to the people, saying, "Arm yourself from among your men for the battle, so that they will go against Midian to mete out the vengeance of Yahweh on Midian. 1,000 from each tribe of every tribe of Israel you will send to battle." So they were assigned from the thousands of Israel, 1,000 from each tribe, 12,000 equipped for battle. Moses sent them, 1,000 from each tribe, to the battle, and Phinehas, son of Eleazar the priest, to the battle with them, and the vessels of the sanctuary, and the trumpets of the blast were in his hand. And they fought against Midian just as Yahweh commanded Moses, and they killed every male. They killed the kings of Midian in addition to the ones they had slain, Evi, and Rechem, and Zur, and Hur, and Reba, the 5 kings of Midian. They also killed Balaam, son of Beor, by the sword. The Israelites took captive the woman of Midian and their children, and they plundered all their domestic animals and all their livestock and all their wealth. They burned all their cities where they dwelled and all their camps with fire. They took all the plunder and all the war booty with the humans and domestic animals. They brought the captives, the war booty, and the plunder to Moses, and to Eleazar the priest, and to the community of the Israelites, to the camp, to the desert plateau of Moab, which was on the Jordan across Jericho. And Moses and Eleazar the priest and all the leaders of the community went out to meet them outside the camp. But Moses was angry toward the leaders of the troops, the commanders of the thousands, and the commanders of the hundreds, who came from the battle of the war. And Moses said to them, "You have kept alive every female? Behold, these women caused the Israelites, by the word of Balaam, to be in apostasy against Yahweh in the matter of Peor, so that the plague was among the community of Yahweh. Now kill every male among the little children, and kill every woman who has had sexual intercourse with a man. But all the females who have not had sexual intercourse with a man, keep alive for yourselves. And you, camp outside the camp 7 days. All who killed a person, and all who touched the slain, purify yourselves on the 3rd day and on the 7th day, you and your captives. You will purify yourselves, and every garment, and every object of hide, and all the work of goat's hair, and every object of wood." Then Eleazar the priest said to the men of the battle who came from the war, "This is the decree of the law that Yahweh commanded Moses. Only the gold and the silver, the bronze, the iron, the tin, and the lead, everything that will go through the fire, you will pass through the fire, and it will be clean. And only in waters of impurity will it be purified. Whoever does not go into the fire, you will pass through the waters. And you will wash your garments on the 7th day and be clean. And afterward you will come into the camp." The New Testament reading is from Luke chapter 8, verse 19 through 39. Luke 8:19. Now his mother and brothers came to him, and they were not able to meet with him because of the crowd. And it was reported to him, "Your mother and brothers are standing outside wanting to see you." But he answered and said to them, "These are my mother and my brothers, the ones who hear the word of God and do it." Now it happened that on one of the days both he and his disciples got into a boat, and he said to them, "Let us cross over to the other side of the lake." And they set sail, and as they were sailing, he fell asleep. And a storm of wind came down on the lake, and they were being swamped and were in danger. And they came and woke him up, saying, "Master, Master, we are perishing." So he got up and rebuked the wind and the billowing waves of water, and they ceased, and it became calm. And he said to them, "Where is your faith?" But they were afraid and were astonished, saying to one another, "Who then is this, that he commands even the winds and the water, and they obey him?" And they sailed to the region of the Gerasenes, which is opposite Galilee. And as he got out on the land, a certain man from the town met him, who had demons. And for a considerable time he had not worn clothes, and did not live in a house, but among the tombs. And when he saw Jesus, he cried out, fell down before him, and said with a loud voice, "What do I have to do with you, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I beg you, do not torment me." For he had commanded the unclean spirit to come out of the man, for it had seized him many times, and he was bound with chains and shackles, and was guarded, and breaking the bonds, he would be driven by the demon into the deserted places. So Jesus asked him, "What is your name?" And he said, "Legion," because many demons had entered into him. And they began imploring him that he would not order them to depart into the abyss. Now there was a large herd of pigs feeding there on the hill, and they implored him that he would permit them to enter into those pigs, and he permitted them. So the demons came out of the man and entered into the pigs, and the herd rushed headlong down the steep slope into the lake and were drowned. And when the herdsmen saw what had happened, they fled and reported it in the town and in the countryside. So they went out to see what had happened, and they came to Jesus and found the man from whom the demons had gone out, sitting there, clothed and in his right mind, at the feet of Jesus, and they were afraid. And those who had seen it reported to them how the man who had been demon-possessed had been healed. And all the people of the surrounding region of the Gerasenes asked him to depart from them, because they had been seized with great fear. So he got into the boat and returned. And the man from whom the demons had gone out was begging him to stay with him, but he sent him away, saying, "Return to your home and tell all that God has done for you." And he went away, proclaiming throughout the whole town all that Jesus had done for him. The wisdom literature reading is from Psalm 39, verses 1 through 13. Psalm 39:1. For the music director, for Jeduthun, a psalm of David. I said, I will guard my ways, that I may not sin with my tongue. I will keep a muzzle over my mouth as long as the wicked are before me. I was mute with silence. I was silent even from saying good things, and my pain was stirred up. My heart grew hot inside me. In my sighing, a fire burned. Then I spoke with my tongue. Let me know, O Yahweh, my end, and what is the measure of my days. Let me know how transient I am. Look, you have made my days mere handbreadths, and my lifespan as nothing next to you. Surely every person standing firm is complete vanity. Surely a man walks about as a mere shadow. Surely in vain they bustle about. He heaps up possessions, but does not know who will gather them in. And now, O Lord, for what do I wait? My hope is for you. From all my transgressions deliver me. Do not make me the taunt of the fool. I am mute. I do not open my mouth, for you yourself have done it. Remove from me your affliction. By the opposition of your hand I perish. When with rebukes you chastise a man for sin, you consume like a moth his delightful things. Surely everyone is a mere vapor. Hear my prayer, O Yahweh, and listen to my cry for help. Do not be deaf to my ears, for I am an alien with you, a sojourner like all my ancestors. Look away from me that I may be cheerful before I depart and am no more. This concludes the reading for Day 90. Thank you for listening. These daily readings are made possible by your generous support of the Global Outreach Ministry of Scott Purcell. To partner with us and enable this work and others like it, please visit huttobible.com/give and select Go Pastor Support from the fund list. You can also sign up for ministry updates at scott-purcell.epistle.org/subscribe. Both of those links can be found in the podcast description. Thank you for helping us share God's Word.